Newsroom. It's time for the France 24 debate. French authorities repeat that they intend to wind down their Mali intervention in the coming weeks. That timeline, though, has again been put to the test this Thursday. Fresh fighting in the Niger River city of Gao. Already 10 days ago, a handful of jihadists were able to keep the Malian army at bay for an entire day. Malian soldiers in cities like Gao and Timbuktu, who've been shown up in combat and have reportedly been taking their frustrations out on civilians. France 24 went to Timbuktu and asked Arab Malians about their personal safety. 3 of those we spoke to have since disappeared. Their families fear the worst. Irvine, one of the reporters who filmed the story, is with us for a special edition of the France 24 debate, where we look at the backlash in Timbuktu. Also joining us, Saloum Toure. He's the director of Amnesty International's branch in Mali. You're in Europe for the time being. This after masked men came to your home at the start of the month.
Yes.
And so that gave you fear for your safety, and you're, for the time being, here.
Yes.
Hoping to go back soon, though.
Okay. Well, I hope I will go back soon.
Okay.
But it's because I've been afraid. On the 2nd of February, 2 men came at my house around 1 past 30, 1 past half past 1, I mean, at night, and they threatened me, and so I ran away from my house, and since that day I have not been in my house again. So
you've not returned to your home, but you hope to soon. We'll talk about it a bit more later, perhaps.
Okay.
Also with us, sociologist Niandou Toure. He's with the University of Paris Descartes, part of the Sorbonne, and a native of Timbuktu. You went back there last August. We'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later on. The France 24 debate, where you can always join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Before we go to our panel, let's take a look at the story filed by Yves Irvine and Alexandra Renard for Reporters, the France 24 investigative news magazine.
The most distant place imaginable. North of the Malian capital, some 900 kilometers across the desert, lies the town of Timbuktu. The fabled city has been free of tourists for many months and just recently freed from radical Islamists who had taken control last March. Getting a car here has become more difficult after fleeing Islamists destroyed the motors of the blue barges that used to ferry vehicles across. In the heart of Timbuktu, the rhythm of normal life is starting to return. Music and parties are once again permitted, but since the 28th of January, when the town was freed, there is a new beat on the street. French and Malian troops patrol through the streets throughout the day, searching for any abandoned weapons, ammunition, or Islamists that may have melted into the population.
There are Islamists still hiding in houses or in the nearby forests. As long as the French military are here, we know it's not over. When it's all back to normal, they'll go back to France.
The rebel fighters had imposed a strict form of Sharia, stoning suspected adulterers, amputating the hands of thieves, and forcing women to wear full veils. It's only in recent days, under the reassuring eye of international troops, that women with stalls at the market have started to show their faces again. Nearly all of the women here say they suffered violently under the rebels' control, when public floggings were commonplace.
When the Islamists were here, everything, even our hands, had to be hidden. If they saw your hands, you would get 5 lashes. We had to wear gloves and long sleeves when we were here on the market. If they saw even a fingertip, they would whip you.
But while some stalls enjoy renewed freedom and business, one row of shops is now completely empty, looted by locals just a day after the military's arrival, on the assumption that the light-skinned Arabs who owned the stores fraternized with the rebels. The vast majority of Arabs, the town's commercial class who owned and ran the biggest shops, have fled. The first families ran because of the fighting, more left when freedom came, afraid of revenge attacks. Only 3 of Timbuktu's 500 Arab families remain, living here in this deserted neighborhood. 2 brothers, Dana and Mohammed, are hanging on, selling their salt and refusing to leave their home and business.
Our neighbors have fled. Men, women, the elderly. They've all gone, even those who had nothing to do with the Islamists. The elderly and the women, it was obvious they had nothing to do with all of that. And yet, they fled. I'm not afraid. If I was, I would be gone. But why should I be afraid? Of what?
13-year-old Picard doesn't see what the fuss is about. His friends are still his friends. He's just happy the Islamists have gone.
These are my friends, Hamma, and the other one is Manu. The Islamists have run away now, and the house of one of them, the one that used to hit me all the time, has been destroyed.
Bukar's dad agrees that the men to fear are gone and insists that his family should have nothing to worry about.
We don't encounter any hatred from locals. Everyone knows who worked with the Islamists and who didn't. The government and the army weren't here, but the people were. People know who collaborated. The military have come to see us, and I went to see them in their camp. They told me I had no cause for concern.
Just around the corner is another Arab household. The head of the family, 70-year-old Ali, is a herdsman, and he and his son also run a small shop. Ali is well known in the area and won't entertain the idea of leaving, even if he's aware of growing tension.
I always have my ID and permits in my pocket, in case someone stops me and asks me something. No one's made any racist remarks to me. Timbuktu is my home. This is my country. My parents died here. My grandparents too. My family was here even before the French colonized. We are from Mali.
Ali's son is conscious that some people now mistrust his family, but he tries not to focus on that.
At the start of the Troubles, our shop was broken into and everything was taken or broken. But otherwise, life goes on as before. Money comes, money goes.
Ali and his neighbour Mustafa have been close friends for many years. Mustafa has faith in Ali, but believes that he is one of the only Arabs that wasn't involved with the Islamists.
There isn't one other Arab in the area that didn't have weapons or ammunition in their shop or home. But Ali, they searched his home and the stall he sells at, and they didn't find even one bullet.
Most of the Arabs fled to refugee camps in neighbouring countries. Some of those who stayed have been arrested and are being held with other prisoners suspected of being collaborators with the radical Islamists. The police headquarters, which was used as a base by the rebels, was razed to the ground by the French airstrikes. So the police and the army are now working hand in hand at this military barracks in the centre of town. Soldiers who abandoned the town 10 months ago now present their latest detainees. 7 men arrested in Timbuktu and neighbouring villages.
This man was the first one we arrested in the nearby town of Traore. Working with the police, we managed to capture all these people that you see here today. The head of the local police is also here.
This man comes from Nigeria, and this one comes from Algeria. He says he is here to teach the Quran and Sharia in Mali. These two come from Timbuktu. This young man is 19 years old. He is studying the Quran, and he says he was forced to work as a chef. He was arrested by the army, and this man we suspect of training the Islamic police.
The suspects are led back into their cell, waiting to be judged. But the government institutions, the courts and officials have yet to come back to Timbuktu. While waiting for the authorities to return, locals are starting to pitch in. These men spend their spare time searching for anything left behind by the fighters.
So what have you brought us today?
We found this weapon in town.
Sometimes these men venture into homes previously occupied by the Islamist fighters.
They're helping us clear up anything that could be dangerous. Weapons, booby traps. They bring it all, even documents they find that can help us ascertain who was involved, who has or had connections with the terrorists.
We know where they were. We know the houses they lived in. All the administration buildings, the big houses. They took them all. There are still lots of places left that need to be cleared, and it's still not sure that all the jihadists have gone.
Barely have the weapons been handed over when the Arab herdsman Ali arrives at the camp. He wants to give the army a present of a bull to thank them for the part they played in freeing the town. But his gesture is met with little enthusiasm, and he's promptly asked to leave.
The whites there. See them off the camp. We don't want them here.
This is the last time we will see Ali. Once the camera is gone, the bull is brought back into the military barracks. The next day, a crowd has gathered in front of Ali's house. His neighbours are visibly upset and extremely worried. Ali has been taken away.
It's so sad. It breaks my heart. It breaks all our hearts. Ali is a peaceful man, and we just want to be able to live in peace.
This woman saw everything. She's the only one who dares to speak, the others too afraid of what the Malian army might do.
A military truck pulled up and they went straight into Ali's house. They didn't ask any questions or give him a second to speak. He was so afraid he found it hard to get into the truck, so they just pushed him in and took him away like that. Ali had nothing to do with the terrorists. If the terrorists did come by, he always told them that he wanted to be left in peace. Seriously, if we could just come together as a people and stage a peaceful protest so that this confusion ends.
There were other arrests made the same morning. Back around the corner at the brothers' soul shop, Picard is in tears.
The army came and took my dad away. They put a tarpaulin over him. The Malian army. Just like that, without any reason to do so. They didn't say anything. They just took him.
Picard was present when the arrests were made. His grandfather, who has come to look after him, can't understand what has happened.
They wanted to take me too in their truck. But in the end, they told me to stay.
They were born here in Timbuktu. We've never left this town. Anyone who committed a crime wouldn't have stayed here now. All our lives, our work is here.
The Malian army denies that it participated in the arrests, but for Arab families in Timbuktu, today the town's freedom has left them living in fear. They worry about revenge attacks, arrests, and even being killed by the forces there to protect them. Mohamed Lamine, the director of this madrasa, an Arab, was arrested on the morning French troops took control of the town.
I saw the Malian army stop in front of his house, and then they left. I went by to see what had happened, and his family told me he'd been arrested. I haven't seen him since.
Residents say it's possible Lamine had relatives among the rebels. 11 days after his arrest, 2 bodies have been found in the dunes, less than 2 kilometers outside of town. Lamine's young wife and her parents go to see what many locals have told them is her husband's grave. They see the cloth protruding from the sands, they start to dig, and very quickly can confirm that it is Lamine.
My daughter came to me and told me her husband had been arrested. I told her to be strong, that if he had done something wrong, he would get a hearing. For my part, I have total confidence in our army. I believe in our justice system. But sadly, what has happened is that I have just found his body.
A week after the arrest of Ali and the two brothers, the men are still missing. Tensions between ethnic groups have existed for decades, but now the Arab minority says it's increasingly the target of revenge for the radical Islamist occupation.
Irvine and Alexandra Renard, that report for Reporters, the France 24 investigative news magazine. Irvine, you're back now from Timbuktu. Still no sign of the three.
No, still absolutely no sign. We continue to remain in contact with the military in Timbuktu, who say they're carrying out an investigation. There's also still one or two journalists in the town who are, trying to see what is going on. But for now, there have been some locals who claim to have seen a military pickup near the area where those two bodies were found. But as we speak, absolutely no sign of those three men who were arrested, indeed, apparently, along with 5 others on that day.
Arrested by people in military uniform. Niandou, Toure, those men taken away, Timbuktu natives. Your reaction to the images that you saw?
I'm very shocked, disappointed. We cannot deny that there are some exactions happening in Mali right now. But I also think that it is due to the fact that the militaries, the civilians, the Songhais, and the overpopulation in the north have been traumatized by what happened since January of 2012. And this is a reaction that happens. It is something we are to condemn, but we still hope that this is the time for us to talk about peace building and to talk about brotherhood between the ethnic groups. We know it will be very difficult for Mali to go on the path of reconciliation, but this is what we have to start right now.
Saloum, Traore, there was talk a few weeks ago that finally there would be there was the Prime Minister who put forth the concept of there'd be this big the national reconciliation talks, that finally the issue of how you give you handle the populations of the north from different minorities, the Fulas, the Tuaregs, the Arabs, but it doesn't look like reconciliation is at hand when you see this report.
Well, I think that I've been also very shocked with this report, and I hope that people would very rapidly come to reconciliation. And these things happened in Mali, and it's something that really astonishes us, because these are people who have been living together for many centuries, and it's really very, very sad that after now that we think that there is reconciliation, because the Islamists have been chased away, and it's now the time for the local population to come together and
together. Yeah. Why this is happening, we'll ask you when we come back. We're going to take a break. You're watching the France 24 debate.
Okay.